Welcome back to Pours and Pars Golf-Centric Whiskey Channel, where we talk a little bit about golf and a lot of bit about whiskey. If you would, like, subscribe, hit that bell, notification bell down below, and that way more of this information gets out to the YouTube universe. Bardstown Bourbon Company. Bardstown Bourbon Company was started by a techie. I say a techie, a guy who made his fortune in the tech industry, and has since turned the Bardstown Bourbon Company into a behemoth within the industry. Not only are they putting out, very fine whiskey, they have Origin, Collab, and the Discovery series. They're also contract distilling for other folks, holding on to the barrels for other folks. And as we know, they are owners of Green River. And ever since the owners, and since purchasing Green River has taken off like a shot. All right, so what do we have? We have Discovery 13. Now, I've not had the previous Discoveries, save one, and I believe it was 11. It was the one that nobody wanted. And there's a reason for that. And an absolutely strong cork game. All right, so what's the deal here with this? So here we are on a weekend. I'm trying to enjoy myself. I got done putting up some insulation in my garage. I'm working on a whiskey barrel to turn it into a cabinet. That will be some content for another day for sure. Now, this is a double-barreled Discovery series. Now, what is that? That means it was, as I looked it up, it was barreled in Hungarian and American oak. Now, the combination of the two is to give it a level of a sweetness and still be able to let the spices flow through. So, this is a blend of 45% Kentucky 9-year. We're at 74% corn, 18% rye, and the rest malted barley, which would be 8%. 22% is also from Kentucky and is 9-year. It is 78% corn, 10% rye, and 17% malted barley. You wouldn't think that those two would make too much difference. 20% is Kentucky 15-year. So a fifth of this is that. 75, 13, and 12. And then 13% is 8-year, and that is 70%, 21% rye, and 9% barley. So with this being 18, 10, 13, and 21% rye, it's on the edge of being a high rye. I don't know if it really is or not. However, it can only be called an 8-year-old because of the minimum of 8, but the lion's share in this is 9, with a fifth of it being 15. If you look, it has a very nice dark color to it when it comes up to the light. And it also, the bottle has always been very, very special in that it has that square shape with the rounded top, but it also has some etching on it that you would want to, that makes the bottle just look a little more elegant, so to speak. And if you look, there's some, you have to look around the bottom, and you can see some stuff at the bottom along with their logo. Okay, so I don't know if we've let it set long enough, but we'll give it the swirl and see what happens. Wow. Okay. So again, when you do a little bit of the research on this, they talk about a little bit of sweetness on the nose. We're supposed to see it goes from being very, very sweet with a dried fruit kind of combination, of course, the caramels and the vanillas, and then it starts getting into the rye spice, i.e. the rye here, with some clove and maybe some baking spice. So that's what I'm kind of expecting, except for the very first nosing turned out to be a lot of that dried fruit. And that's what I'm still getting. We're going to let it go a little bit longer. So if you haven't done Bardstown, I would suggest the Origin series. The Origin series is getting a lot of press, won a lot of awards, and particularly in the #1 in their weeded series, that thing has just taken off like a shot. But don't discount the other ones, okay? As far as I'm concerned, all the Origins are awesome. The collaborations, they have a specific palate they target, and unfortunately, I've not been a. It's not that I'm not a fan. It just didn't set with my palate very well. Okay, so again, it's the dried fruit. You get a little bit of the sweetness in it. And only on the third time do I get some rye. There it is. There's the rye spice. So for all the rye that's in here, the rye note is actually in the background in comparison to all the rest. So for you guys that might be afraid of it because it has that rye component, if we're basing it on the nose, no. So salute. Wow. Okay. So this is a high rye bourbon, to be sure. You can taste the rye in it. The very first note that I pick up on the palate right in the very front was actually a very nice caramel note, and then followed by a subtle rye note. And rye gives off this grainy, a spicy grain. And when people see spicy, they think, oh, burning my tongue like maybe like a hot wing. No, what we're talking about here is more of a peppery, clove, well, even into that baking spice, not cinnamon, that would be sweeter, but more of the duller, think Thanksgiving type stuff. And there I still get the sweetness of the dark fruit. And then we're getting around here as it's sitting here in the glass, it is just coming alive. Again, you get hit with the spice that's on the front, and now it's taking over the middle of the palate. And the finish, I will say, is a medium. We'll call it medium finish. It's not burning all the way down. It's just staying right there on the back of the throat, which is perfect. I would say this is a very, very nice pour, particularly if you were to let it set maybe another 10 minutes. The body of this would change. You would think that the body of this would change after a few minutes worth of setting just by me swirling it and being here. There's the caramel note coming up forward, and the rye grain is starting to disappear a little bit. Now, I'm not sure where the Hungarian oak part comes into play, unless it's smoothing out a lot of the flavors, because there's no spike in a flavor. They're all just coming across nice and even. You get the rye grain a little bit. It's not overwhelming. You get the caramel note or the dry fruit note, not overwhelming. And then you get to the finish in the back end, and it's not a killer. It doesn't hurt one bit. It is a very, very nice pour. Yeah, it's just, the more that it sets, the better it gets. So if you have an opportunity and you're out there, I believe this had a retail of around $140. Is it $140 worth? Yeah. Say you have a disco sitting on your shelf and it actually tastes good, unlike the other one that I bought, not so much. And but it turned out very well. So from a reputable bourbon manufacturer with a lot of age in it, and for those that like a little bit of spice into the drink or whatever it could be, put this on here, maybe even throw a little ice cube on it to dampen it down a little bit, and you're on your way. So if you like more of what you see here, please like and subscribe, and hit that like bell yet again. Tell us if there's anything you'd like to see, and as always, let's see you save those pars and share those pours.